I want to take 8 minutes and I want to give you 3 practical ways you can love your kids, right? Now, one way you can love your kid is coming out to a night like this. I assume you're all here because you love your kids, yeah? And you want the best for your kids. So I'll just give you 3 practical things. Now, I'll get to the end, you'll go, I knew that, all right? But isn't life about old truths that we forget that we need to be reminded of, isn't it? It's not really about, there's not many new truths, it's mostly about old truths. So here's the first one. Tell your kids that you love them. It's pretty simple. You know, some of you have probably grown up in a generation where your dad actually didn't tell you that very often. Now, my dad didn't really start telling me that he loved me until I was about in my mid-20s. Now I can't even get off the phone without him saying it, right? I love you, son. You know, you're just going, oh, it's weird, but I'm just receiving that. That's really good. I regularly ask one of my boys if he's remembered that I love him. Do you know what he says to me? I already know that. And you know what? That's the correct answer, because I want him to know it until he's sick of knowing it, all right? You know, we all know words are powerful. In Ephesians 4:29, Paul, the Apostle Paul in the Bible actually gives a grid for working out what words should be said. And this is his grid. He says they've got to be timely, they've got to build up, and they've got to minister grace. Now, I'm telling you, telling someone you love them works on every count, every time, pretty much. Now, you know how you need to do it. I mean, sometimes you need to say without words, don't you? But you need to communicate it every day. And I'll just throw this in, especially you dads. Especially you dads. Why do we need to communicate this every day? We need to communicate it every day because shame is incredibly powerful and it speaks to your kids. You see, when your kids fail, one of the most common things that they do is they go, I've failed, I'm not valuable, other people around me don't find me valuable, and I'm in trouble. Telling your kid that you love them and loving them in spite of their failures can really lock them in and help them. Second thing, lead your kids. That's how you can love them. Lead them. Most of you know what it's like when humans don't get good leadership. Does everyone know what I'm talking about? It gets a bit messy. Lots of stories in the Bible about times where there isn't good leadership and it gets really messy. Some of you have experienced in the workplace what it's like when there's not good leadership in the workplace. And you know what? I've been to a bunch of adventure education camps with students from this school, and I've seen what it's like when you put them in a group and there's no leader, all right? There's a whole bunch of trouble and not much action. That's pretty much how it rolls. Maybe you come home from work and you've had a babysitter. Maybe your kids were left alone for 10 minutes and you go, they need leadership. When you've got 4 boys, some of you may have more than 4 boys, about 30 seconds of quiet reminds you that your kids need leadership, all right? Because something drastic is just about to happen. The job of mums and dads is to lead the family, right? And that means mums and dads doing what's best for the family. It's not always received with joy, is it, from kids, good leadership, but they need it, don't they? Jesus is pretty clear in the Gospels. He actually says that people are like sheep, and I think he says that because they're a little bit stupid sometimes. And we can all do things that are a little bit crazy sometimes. We all kind of need leadership at some point. And the great hope of a dumb sheep is a good shepherd, isn't it? You know, and the truth is that sometimes kids do dumb things. And the great hope of a kid doing a dumb thing is that they've got a good parent who's leading them and looking after them. You with me? Yeah. Last thing is this. The last way that you can communicate to your kids love practically is by being loved yourself. Do you know, people want to be loved. You know, the young couple shooting flirty glances at one another want to be loved. The old man walking slowly with his cane wanted to be loved. The mother trying to corral her children wants to be loved, and so do the kids. The cashier behind the counter, frustrated by the customer's picky demands, well, they want to be loved, and so did the customer. You see, here's a definition of love for you. Love is willing self-sacrifice for the good of another that does not demand reciprocation or that the person being loved is deserving. Listen to that again. Love is willing self-sacrifice for the good of another that does not demand reciprocation or that the person being loved is deserving. Now, if you're anything like me, the question you ask at the end of that is, how do you do that? You know, because we get a massive blessing from our kids sometimes, a lot of times, don't we? But do you know sometimes they give us nothing? And has anyone noticed that? They give you nothing but trouble. And at that point, if you're actually relying upon them giving something to you for you to love them, you're going to be in trouble, right? And that's kind of how it works with love. If we're actually dependent upon human relationships to fill up our tank full enough so that we can love other people, we're going to be in trouble, because people do really well sometimes, but other times they're really disappointing, aren't they? I'll finish on this. I think my 8 minutes are up. Have you ever heard that saying, hurt people hurt people? Do you know, I think the reverse is true. Loved people love people. So the question that you've really got is, if you're going to love, if you want to have a love for your kids that's unbreakable, you actually need to be loved in a way that's unbreakable. You get that? And you actually aren't going to get that kind of love from people. You actually get that kind of love from Jesus. Jesus is the only one who loves you in a way that is unbreakable, that will give you the fuel to love your kids and everyone else in a way that's unbreakable. You get that? And he does. I mean, at the end of the day, you know, the scriptures say he went to the cross. And he didn't die for you because you're worthy. He died for you because you're not worthy. And somehow his dying for you because you weren't worthy makes you worthy.